Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the 89 Garage. I am Shane, and I'm sure glad to see you. So I was just making this video, putting it all together, and I realized I probably ought to explain something here. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and sometimes you got to do the wrong way to discover the right way. So that's what happens in this video. I do something to try and cheat the system, so to speak. In theory, it sounds like it will work. But it didn't, and so I'm going to show you my mitzvah and then the right way to do it. Take care. Enjoy the show. Before you start this project, you absolutely must disconnect the battery, okay? Today I'm going to be doing things maybe the not so right way. What I'm going to be doing is Frankie needs a starter. An 89, the starter on it is starting to get heat soak. Heat soak is when you go to the store or whatever, you come back out and it doesn't want to start because the starter's hot. I don't know if it's the windings, whatever in there. It's called heat soak though, and it turns over really slow. So I got a 92 to 95 starter for that, and I also got one for Frankie. The one on Frankie sticks sometimes too, so that's kind of a not so fun moment when that happens. But I'm going to alleviate that on both of them, and I'm going to do a little test on Frankie first. Now the 92 through 95 starters have a hot lead going down to the starter at all times, so it's pretty much connected to the battery at all times. On these earlier Fox bodies, you just switched the hot that's going down there up here on the fender well. So I'm going to still use that method, but I'm going to show you a little trick I'm going to try. I'm 99.9% sure it's going to work. There's no reason why it shouldn't. So let me show you. This is a starter for the, I'm pretty sure it's 92 to 95s. I think this also came on the 3.8 liters on the SN95 3.8s, and possibly the new edges. I don't know. Anyway, this is where your hot at all times lead would come, where the relay goes on the fender well. And then your separate wire that's around down there would go here, and that's actually activating this solenoid. Pushes this against the flex plate, flywheel, whichever trans you have, and engages the starter to start the motor. So instead of running a wire all the way down there, I'm going to leave it how it is. I will make this so it's switched, but I'm going to run a jumper from this terminal to this terminal, so they're both activated at the same time through the solenoid on the fender wall, and it should work just fine. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. Let's make this cable. So it's 8 gauge, and I just ran some heat shrink around it right before your very eyes. Looks great. Now we're going to wait for this thing to cool off, and we'll put it on the starter. Okie doke. We're cooled down. So basically, it's just going to look like that. And then we'll just attach the cable that's already on the current starter right here. We should be honky-dory. I bought the stuff to do it the way Ford did, but I'm going to give this a shot. If it works, then I'm going to roll with it. It's just Frankie. I'll probably do it right on this actually. When I continue this video, it will be tomorrow. Tis the next day, and I'm gonna go ahead and try and throw this starter in here tonight. We're trying to get to, let's see, that bolt right there. So if you have all your emission stuff, you probably can't even see it, but I'm gonna try to run a socket from, try and get it so I can get a ratchet on it out here. I've tried putting an open end wrench on, it's just not enough room to grab onto it, even with a 12 point. So I'm gonna try to reach through from up here with a socket. There's my setup. This is my ratchet. Got us an extension going all the way. See it down there? All the way back to there. All right. Turn you against the firewall. See if we can get you a good spot. Let's hope that comes undone for us. Alright, so we got to get right under here. There it is. Okay. Should have raised the car up a little bit higher. Holy crap, this thing is filthy. I remember second guessing myself putting this thing in there. But I was in a hurry, I wanted to start it. I just got it all put back together. So I went with it. Before we get too much further, I wanted to, sorry about the jostling around of the camera. I'm laying on the ground here, but you can see the difference in size. This is a starter that is, this is a smaller starter that has more torque than that old unit. These are actually, a lot of people call them the high torque mini starter. So a lot of people convert to these to use long tube headers. I'm just doing it because it's better and I got a good deal on it. Mostly that's why. Got her all hooked up. Time to shimmy that thing back up in there. Got it in, the starters all mounted and everything. It's up yonder, right there. One thing I wanted to tell you that I ran into is apparently the newer starters are have a little bit longer cable. So last night, put the starter in Frankie. Starts, you know, it works. But my problem still exists that existed with the last starter. I thought it had a lazy solenoid on the starter and it was keeping it engaged after you start it for, I don't know, 2-3 seconds, and then it releases. New starter's doing the exact same thing. So my thought is maybe there's something wrong with the electronics going to it, keeping that engaged. So I'm going to start from the basics. See if we have 12 volts hanging somehow up here. Either the solenoid or maybe even the ignition switch is providing 12 volts longer than it should. I'm going to find out which one it is, and I'll show you how I'm going to figure that out. If that's not it, then maybe I just have a bad starter. But we're going to have a gander. All right. listen to it hang. When I let off, it'll still hold. Then it lets off. That's what I'm trying to fix. The first thing we're going to try to eliminate is we're going to start with the basics here. We're going to test and make sure that we're not holding 12 volts coming from the ignition switch when you apply the key. When you turn the key forward, it applies 12 volts right here to this lug. This one here goes to our starter. So we got 12 volts hot all the time right on this side. When 12 volts is applied here, it sends 12 volts down here and to the starter. So I need to make sure we're not hanging right here. And then we'll move to here if we pass this test here. So for this procedure, I'm going to go ahead and use the old snap-on test light. I mean, seriously, you can get these things at Harbor Freight. They work just as good. Probably not as nice as the snap-on. Well, for sure not as nice. These are often referred to as a scope on a rope. I'm going to set this thing up here where I can see it. I just went ahead and you want to make this so nothing hits the ground. The black one I'm not going to hook up to anything. Alright, it's all set up. The black is not hooked to anything. I just tied it back so it doesn't accidentally hit anything. Need to come back over here just to make sure that all that moving around didn't hit anything. It did not. So I just got the alligator clip in there running up to here. So when 12 volts is applied here, it'll send 12 volts up there. And we've got this hooked to the ground on the battery. So when we apply the ignition switch, we'll get a light right there, and we're going to see if the light stays on when we come back with the ignition switch. If you have a manual trans, you got to still push in the clutch here. All right, we're looking out there at the light. Key on, back off. All right, that passes our test. For this next test, I got the battery unhooked again. And we're just going to go ahead and remove. So I'm going to be able to just go ahead and take this and just clamp it right here. And we'll hook the battery cable back up. Now that you've got that out of there, don't touch it on 12 volts, okay? Because there's no safety if you hit that now. All right. Oh, we also are going to have to hook this back up. That lug's kind of out there. Okay, now we're hooked back up. Let's go roll that key forward. Watch the light again. Yeah. Key forward. Back. Maybe we got a bad starter. Okay, now I've got everything hooked back up. I've even hooked the starter back up. And now I'm going to try this. I'm going to go off the end of that lug and just see with the starter hooked up if that light stays on. If it does not, then I'm thinking it's probably the starter, something mechanical with the starter, and I just so happen to have two straight starters that did the same thing. Yeah, we got all right. You see that thing staying lit? So let's try it. Let's go ahead and see how that slowly dims. I've been just sitting here carousing on the forums, and it appears that I'm not the only one that's ran the loop from the solenoid over to the starter motor itself down there on the starter. And apparently this is an issue because I did that.
You big dummy, see what you did?
This is what happens when you try to cut corners, folks. So to do this correctly, I'm gonna have to rip that whole starter cable all the way out of the car. And I don't know that that's a today project. Today I got cars and coffee. My date's over there asking me, you gonna clean me up before we go? I'll be honest with you, I really think that that is Frankie's favorite position. It loves being up in the air, I swear. There is the harness. Goes from the starter solenoid all the way across the front of the motor and to the starter. This is what we did last night. If you recall, we were short, so I'm gonna try to decrimpize these because I've made calls all over the place. Nobody has this thing. If I can't do it, then I might just go get some welding lead over at Cal Ranch and build a whole new one. I cut all these off of it. I'm actually going to compare the lengths. Where did I put it? This is what I have. That's the part number on this. I got this from Amazon. It's an A64LF. That is what you need for pre-92 vehicles. You can tell by the size of that hole. Now I could take and drill that out probably if I needed to, and I will if I have to. But that's what that is for. I'm gonna actually stretch these out and just have a look and see if there's any extra length in it. All right, it's longer. The one on the right is this bad boy right here. It says right on there it's 5 feet long. So this hole needs to be a 5/16. Got me a 5/16 bit right there. I'm gonna hurry and slam a hole through that. I am going to replace the whole thing. The extra length has me sold. I'll just buy another one off the Amazon. I will put a link below on this cable, and this is actually intended for the older ones. However, we're gonna make this work. It's been drilled out and deburred. So now I gotta run another wire alongside it. I see a 67 or 8 Mustang getting backed in over there. Yeah, buddy. I came back out here. I got the harness made up. I have the hot side hooked up. And that's as far as I got. I just I didn't know how I'd want this ran, so I just kind of left myself enough to make it happen. But I need to put an end on this. Need to put the starter in. Gonna get those brackets hooked back up because I don't want any of the cabling rubbing on anything, touching anything. It's just better to have it in that, in those brackets that Ford made. Unfortunately, the rubber that goes around those has got hot, cold so many times it's actually turned into plastic. So I am going to be kind of needing to be somewhat delicate with those in order to reuse them. One of them actually broke in half. I'm just going to like run some electrical tape around it and then crimp that bracket back over the top of it. It's not going to go anywhere. So it's got lips on each side to keep it from going back and forth. I don't have anything else to use, so it'll work. You'll see. All right, so got the red wire hooked up to the solenoid trigger. Got the battery connected to the starter right there. That is a direct shot from the battery, well, from the battery side of the starter solenoid up on the fender. Ready to throw this thing back in, and then I waited till we're done before I mount that thing back the way it should be, just to be sure we had enough room everywhere. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this puppy back in right now. There we have it, folks. I can get that thing to stay zoomed. So we got the two cables running in front here, both in that bracket. We're also mounted up here, and then that runs all the way across up through here. I'm going to try to bend this just a little bit back. Perfect. That way we're free airing all the way back from that bracket, not touching the motor mount or anything. That's nice. The moment of truth is here. I went ahead and reran this ground, by the way. I also shortened this ground up. I should have shown it before I cut it, but I mean, I was able to trim that much off of it. The previous owner put the extendo cable on there, so I shortened that up. And put it right there. We got, this is our red wire that goes down to the starter now, and the starter is sitting, the new starter cable was sitting right here, so it's constantly energized. So I'm gonna crawl in this thing, and I swear if this doesn't work, I'm gonna come unglued. I also did go ahead and open up the garage. Last thing I want to do is die from asphyxiation. I'm not going to run it very long. I hate running cars up on jack stands. So I'm gonna go ahead, kick it over, maybe once, twice, just to, if it does work, just to be sure. Here we go, folks. Moment of truth. Sounds better. Try it again. Alright, it's not hanging. Sweet.
There she blows.
Okay. I'm happy. So I'm going to call this episode done. I'm going to call that licked. Learn from my mistakes, guys. Don't make it yourself. I really thought that would work. I didn't want to have that hot all the time down there. Thanks for watching, guys. Tune in to the next episode for more action-packed drama with Frankie and Shane. Peace out.